I have an attitude of gratitude because of this inauguration. My country, my fellow citizen, me, have made me so proud that we may be growing up. We may be growing beyond the idiocy of racism and sexism and ageism and all those ignorances. That makes me proud. I grew up in a little village in Arkansas. And my grandmother, my father's mother, owned the only Black-owned store in the town. To live to a time when not only is President-elect Obama been forgiven for being Black by the citizenry, more so, he is commended for being Black, to the point that he is asked to occupy the most important chair in our nation. You see, the first Africans were brought to what was to become the United States in 1619, 1 year before the Mayflower docked. Since we have come here as slaves, there have been people who have said that it will get better. By and by, I'm gonna lay down this heavy load. People really believed it. So while Barack Obama himself was not expected, this day was expected. I have a poem which says, in effect, human beings are more alike than we are unalike. There's a statement of Terence writing in 154 BC. Terence, a slave, sold to a Roman senator. He was freed by that senator. He became the most popular playwright in Rome. He said, I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. This statement is so incredible. And that this Black man, not born white, not born free, or even able to earn a citizenship in the Rome of his day, said, I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. That is so important for us to learn. I know it's 154 BC, and we've not quite got it yet, but we're en route. I think it is imperative that we learn humility, which says there was someone before me who paved the way, actually, paid for me. My responsibility is to prepare myself so I can pay for someone else who is yet to come.
If you name you
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Everybody, this is Preacher Moss, the host of the S.O.S, the Shoutout Show. Hope everybody's having a good day. Just so you guys know, I had a little boo-boo and hurt my eye, but, the strong shall survive. But did you just hear what Maya Angelou just said, brothers and sisters? I mean, literally, did you hear the power and clarity? And I think it's really important because I'm really beginning to understand this scope. I'm sorry about that. Healing power of dignity. I'm really beginning to understand a little bit more what she's talking about in terms of wow, just a human condition. Just a human condition. Today's topic is, why is hope important? And why it's important is because that's, in many regards, that's all we have. The believer has hope and the believer has faith. And I find it really important to reiterate that to myself. That's my mantra every day, that it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And I found myself during the last couple of weeks here, call it politics, call it the nation of the nature of people, call it mean-spiritedness. It began to get me down a little bit, and I began to call into question why, and really put into my own questions, my own thoughts. It's like, if I were to, in some regards, give up hope, how detrimental is that? How detrimental is giving up hope? Because when I watched the storming of the Capitol, the riot of the Capitol, there was a lot of things that were going on there. We could talk about racism, we could talk about lies, but it is the abject abandoning of hope. And you can tell when it's abject abandoning of hope because a person can only have it for themselves. They can't have it for other people. Hope is like communication and currency. Hope is like when you go to the bank and you don't have anything in the bank, hope is a thing that you do have in the bank. So let's give a quick shout out because I'm not going to be going too long today. But if you're coming on the show for the first time, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you. Our format is very open. Like I said, my name is Preacher Moss. I'm the host of the show. I'm not the owner of the show. In fact, I'm going to move away from that. I'm even thinking about taking my name off the Shoutout Show and just call it the Shoutout instead of with Preacher Moss. You know why? Because I'm getting so much into understanding, how we own things and how dangerous people feel when they own things, because it can move from ownership to entitlement. And once it moves from ownership and entitlement, it frees itself of responsibility. It frees itself of accountability. And you have the message that we have now. You have the lying. You have the mean-spiritedness. You have situations, scenarios where I talked about the very devilish, brothers and sisters. You have situation scenarios whereby people find themselves in situations. This is the scary part. They find themselves in situations whereby they feel like they can't help themselves. They feel like they can't help themselves. And that is the closest characteristic of the devil that you can have. That you are addicted to this chaos. That you are addicted to the fact that while there is a good opportunity to do the right thing, to assist people, to be value-driven in your own community, they just can't do it. This other thing over here that they know has no value. This other thing over here that they know they can't take it anywhere except to someone else. That's a deep thing, brothers. That's a very deep thing. And I see it happening more and more and more and more and more. I mean, throughout the country. Several years ago, I was on tour. And I had to do the show at Augustana College in Moline, Quad Cities, Moline, Illinois. And it was always a killer drive down there because, you couldn't really fly. You had to drive. No big deal, brothers and sisters. But this is of note. I finished doing my show. And as it was back then, when that habits was, I would take my check from the show and I'd cash it on the bank that it was written out to. That way it wouldn't, bounce in my account. That's a whole nother story. What was interesting was on this time of trying to find the bank, and this is a little bit before you had all the apps and stuff, you really have to look at a map and try and figure out where the bank was. I made a left where I should have made it right, and I saw a long line of people in Moline, Illinois. Now, Moline, Illinois only has a few black people, But I'm saying it was a long line of people. And I'm thinking, it's Moline, you have the streets that you start even thinking, it's mostly white people out here, and that's the wrong thinking. But you're thinking, what is it? Maybe it's a giveaway, maybe, they some big event, community event. And I followed the line around, brothers and sisters. And I got to the front of the line and I realized, oh my gosh, this is a food bank. This is a food bank. And this was in 2014. A food bank in the heart of America, in the heart of America, in the Midwest. And I looked at the people in the food bank. And the thing that I saw was that they weren't totally defeated, but they were very much defeated. And you can see the people in line, the level of desperation, and you begin to worry, how are you going to hang on? And that thing of saying hanging on has to do so much with hope. I find a lot of times that a lot of people, because of their situations, their money, their education, they've never really been pushed to a situation whereby you got to engage hope and faith and belief. So before I get started, anybody coming on the show for the first time, thank you. Appreciate you for coming on the show. Simple rules. I'm the host. I'm not the owner. Simple rules. Like I said, come on the show. Get yourself in the comment section. I want to give you a shout out. This is a community project. This is a community platform. One day, all the people I'm going to introduce to you, they're going to be having their own shows. We're going to have so much fun, inshallah, this next year that we're going to be able to do different things. You have new technology coming out. And so I'm going to invite people into technology where we can actually talk. StreamYard is good, but I'm talking about where we can actually talk. And even going further, brothers and sisters, if you're tuning in the first time, we have conversations like this, and I do stand up. But let me explain something about comedians. A lot of the comedians that you find come from very, very difficult situations. They come from very challenging situations. Comedy was the last thing. Comedy, for lack of a better word, gave them hope. It gave them a way to express themselves. Now, it's not necessarily a overall remedy for a lot of issues that you deal with, depression, anxiety, lack of employment. It's not, but it gives you a glimmer of hope. So before I go any further, I want to introduce everybody or reintroduce everybody. Because at this point in time, you guys should be able to talk to one another, and I am working on that. So we got Sister Sultana, our consultant producer. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Sister Sultana. You are always appreciated. If I'm not said it every day, then let me know so I can continue to say it twice a day and make up. We got Sister Aika all the way from Indonesia. She's doing great. I hope you're having a good time out there in Indonesia. I mean, I know it's Fajr time, so don't forget us. Get those prayers in. Get everybody on the shout out team because we need them. Believe me, we need them. My main man, all talk for sheep. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh. Brother, all the way from Toronto. You are regular, man. You regular like 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the evening, man. I appreciate it, just like everybody else. And thank you for taking the trip all the way from Toronto. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh. Sister Santiago. Inshallah, everything is going well with everybody. She's in Tennessee. It's freezing. She's missing Texas. Well, you better come on back to Texas. You better head on back to Texas. I don't know about Tennessee, but I can tell you, I believe Texas is a little bit warmer. And my sister, Mr. Sultana Ali, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister. I'm going to make sure I get your comment out there because it's very important. She says, we have people in our community that refuse to adhere to leadership. And that is something. We really have to talk about that. We really got to talk about that. All right, we got Sister Reed coming all the way in from Michigan. Kalamazoo, I believe. It's Kalamazoo coming all the way from Michigan. We appreciate you, Sister Reed. Give us an update. Let us know how Auntie and your sister are doing. And we have our unofficial research director, Rabina Akram Chowdhury. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sister. We always appreciate you having there. So make sure you come on through. So we appreciate love you, Santiago. Yeah. I look like Satan, but it says, I think it's Santiago. I appreciate you. And my little brother coming all the way from Milwaukee, Cream City, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, home of Black people on 3 bus routes. I'm kidding. It's 4 bus routes now. But man, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. Let's holler and let's get to the show. Again, today we're talking about hope. Because what happened over the last several years, and I'm not going to say with the Trump administration. I'm not going to say with the Trump administration because it goes actually a little bit big. It goes a little bit actually deeper than that. I'm gonna give a shout out to Violet Auntie. I'm glad giving both hugs from all of us. You know, I've talked about this with several people. So if I've said this to you, just bear with me. You know, the loss of hope for a lot of people actually started in the second term of Obama. The first term, the first election of Obama, for a lot of people, they thought it was a fluke. You know, we'll give you that one. But when he got reelected, it was interesting because people banked. Let me say this very carefully. Some people banked all of their whiteness, my white privilege, the fact that I haven't been a slave, the fact I haven't been discriminated against. They thought from that perch that somehow whiteness is going to win out. And I said then, when Obama won, I said that to a bunch of people. I said, I believe we are entering the most spiritually, mentally, and sociologically sickest period of history ever been involved in. And when you think about it, brothers and sisters, I think I'm correct. I think I'm making the case, and I'm sure all of you can make the case, because it's almost like people stopped believing in God. Almost like some quotients of society stopped believing in God when Obama was reelected. It's almost like, they stopped, like almost to say, God, my God wouldn't let this Negro get another 4 years. Therefore, there's no God. And then it left the door open for a demagogue. I'm always careful because I don't know what people's religious affinities are and things like that. But I never, ever felt that Donald Trump was a spiritual man. I never felt like he was a religious man. And it's interesting because other people felt the same way. Other people felt the same way. But when you're in that abyss of having no hope, you're going to reach out to anything that looks like light, anything that looks like a tree limb to pull yourself up, anything that looks like a rope to climb. You're going to do that, brothers and sisters. And when I say do that, people have continually done that. And that becomes the modus operandi. That becomes the standard operational procedure that people see themselves in these positions trying to move forward with that logic, with that reason. If you're a religious person, we realize that hope, brothers and sisters, it doesn't reside in and of itself. Hope takes action. It takes a scenario whereby we hope there's a problem. We hope that there's a solution to the problem. We hope that not just that there's a solution to a problem, but there's a logic to it. There's a reasoning to it that we can all attach to. So the next time we see it, brothers and sisters, we're not just stuck with hope. We're stuck with data. We're stuck with information that tells us how to get out of a situation. The thing about COVID-19 was for a large holding pattern, we were stuck with hope. And that hope wasn't attached to anything. It wasn't attached to science, it wasn't attached to religion, it wasn't attached to communal information, it wasn't attached to anything. And it was given to us as this is real. When somebody goes, I hope something, no. Hope is not good. Hope takes work. Work tied into hope is what makes faith real. Faith, hope, and work is what makes belief. See, when you put your back into it, when you put some skin in the game, you'll find out that, hope ain't enough. I hope I can eat is not the same as I'm going to go work and make sure I have some money that when I go to the grocery store, that I can go ahead and get something to eat. I hope I can get a good job. What are the parameters of getting a good job? The parameters of getting a good job is you must have some level of education about that job. You just can't walk in and hope somebody's going to give you a situation scenario that's to your benefit. Even that, brothers and sisters, even that, as clear as that may sound, it's still not enough. It's literally still not enough. I find myself in my own life meeting people who are extremely desperate, who only attach to hope. And if you're in the vicinity of them when they attach to hope, then you become the hope. I hope Preach gonna hook me up. I hope Rabina gonna hook me up. Man, I hope Satana ain't tripping gonna give me. And that's the whole vernacular. That's the whole conversation. Because it's hope is a dangerous thing because it could be you could project hope on other people, hoping that they hope the same thing that you hope. So you need money for your apartment. You hope that they hope they can get you money for your apartment. It's a false narrative out there. Even more, brothers and sisters, let me throw this up from Sister Rabina. Old saying, familiarity breeds contempt, comes to mind why people voted for Trump. Well, let me add this. There was a different type of hope going on the last 4 years. The hope was that the statistics would lie. The hope was that they can supersede statistical data about what the country is going to look like. What I'm saying is, this is the last election. This was going to be the last election potentially where they're going to be able to twist and manipulate data, manipulate the elections. In the next 4 years, there's going to be a massive growth of people of color. And finally, the people of color will be able to usurp what's commonly known as the GOP, or quietly known as the white supremacist voting bloc and the evangelical voting bloc. They're not going to matter anymore. So however you want to slice it, for the next couple of elections, probably for a lot of the elections, it's going to be a control. The House is going to be controlled by Democrats, Republicans, and you're probably going to have most likely 85% of the time a Democratic president. And I'm gonna explain something to you. What was dangerous, or what continues to be dangerous, is that we see an amalgamation of people framing this logic in the absence of all truth. In the absence of veritable truth, these people keep giving you the same thing. It's no different than what happened in the South back in the day. One of the commodities the black man could never afford in the South or in slavery, he can never afford transferable truth. What it means is I can see the truth right there and you can see the truth right there. However, only you can claim it. I couldn't claim it. And not being able to claim that truth for a lot of years made people comfortable. You're talking about 100 years of oppression and things like that, and people not claiming their truth. You can get comfortable with that. That's a generational transfix, brothers and sisters, a generational scenario whereby the pedagogy is these people don't deserve justice. They deserve oppression. They need to be controlled. They're not smart. They're not educated. Despite the fact, from the time slavery ended to the time the Voting Rights Act was approved, you're talking about transformational growth intellectually, spiritually, religiously, politically, and economically of a people who didn't have anything. They didn't have anything. And this goes back to something I talked about before. Before we get in these conversations about race and slavery, I want y'all to know something. Our brothers and sisters who were in bondage, they were not slaves except on paper. You can go back and look at the journal, some of these journals, black encyclopedias, and you will see people who look like you and me, black folk who weren't abolitionists, but they were intellectuals. And them being intellectuals in that time frames something, brothers. It frames where people can go to get information. It frames where people can not only get information, but they can get and understand it. It frames the transition from hope to action. From hope to action. You know, when I talk about hope, I try to be as fair and open and honest as I can. You know, it doesn't matter what the situation is, whether I'm doing stand up, COVID, I'm teaching. It doesn't matter, brothers and sisters, because I have something that I deal with, and this is a really big word for me. You know, my hope moves to faith, but my faith moves to a certain certainty, a different type of certainty, whereby if the chips get down and it's not working out, I think I have even more confidence that it's going to work out. In Islam, they call it tawakkul. You have tawakkul. So, in religious circles, you can have faith, but then you have belief. There's faith, but then there's belief. And I'm saying, what good is hope, brothers and sisters? And this is why hope is so important. Because if you don't have hope, like real, genuine hope, you're never going to get to belief. It's virtually impossible to get to belief. If you don't have hope, the best in the world, the best and the worst of the world is right here. This is all you're going to see. We hope on a different level. There is beneficial hope. We still got to do work. That this life in and of itself is not the end. No, that there is an afterlife. There's a carryover. There is something you work towards. And I'm going to say this to all of us so we can say it to our children and people in our little circles here. Sometimes hope is the only pathway you put into action that results in full change. Yeah. My mother puts this stuff up because my mom was in the civil rights movement. My Aunt Maxine was in the civil rights movement. So when they talk about it, just like some of your parents, when they talk about it, they talk about something that we really can't galvanize. Like the worst racism I dealt with probably comes nowhere near what they dealt with. Because it was different. It was different. And I'm not even going to talk about race and things like that. I'm just going to talk about the meritocracy that's involved in spirituality when you're trying to live a better life, when you're trying to be a good citizen. Let's throw it out there. When you're trying to serve your Lord, there's a meritocracy that's involved. And that meritocracy begins with hope. And it extends the purpose. It extends the action. It extends to belief. And I would like to kind of rearrange this a little bit because we live in a time where the gambits we face is that we run into large pockets of people who not only don't have hope, but they don't understand hope. If it were to come in their face, they wouldn't be able to readily identify what hope is. And at some point in time, admittedly, we've seen people lacking hope. We've seen people lacking hope, but we've been stereotypical about it. We've seen them lacking hope, but they were homeless, but they had a drug problem, but they weren't that smart, but they were ex-felon, but. But then comes the aspect where the people you think have hope, the people who think they should definitely have hope, all of a sudden you find them empty. You find them very, very hollow vessels just walking around humanity. It's worse than COVID, brothers and sisters. That infection is worse than COVID. Because at least with COVID, you can get a vaccine now, or you can wash your hands and sanitize your hands. You can put a mask on. There's no mask when you don't have hope. There's no hand sanitizer when you don't have hope. Don't worry about coughing on me if you don't have hope. The fact of the matter is, it's a bedrock. And the sooner we get to the idea of understanding it as a bedrock, I think as a community, brothers, just as a community, we can begin to heal. We can begin to heal. I have I've had the opportunity in some regards to be in situations where, when people say I was, let's do, I used to have people say, well, I hope it's going to get better. And I hope things get better. And I move from I hope things get better. And as a Muslim, I say, inshallah, God willing, because my hope doesn't do anything. That's God willing, because for whatever that problem is that sister or brother has, or that child has, I'm going to move it to action. I'm going to move it to action. I'm going to say, let's do better than hope. Let's take it to a source who, for lack of a better word, can handle these problems, who can hear you, who can see your problems, and also see your solutions. You know, it's so simple and yet so difficult. It's so simple and yet so difficult for us to frame hope for ourselves, hope for our families. And the reason I say it, because you can frame it for your family, but the world is your family. The world is your neighbor. You know, watching the current events, that young lady that I highlighted yesterday, I can't remember her name. I don't know. I forgot. Memory. But in her poem, she talked about hope, but she talked about hope in action. She talked about where she was as a young girl, that's hope, to where she is now. And just the same as Martin Luther King's speech, she talked about the very delicate idea of where you're positioned, of where you're positioned. Thank you, Amanda Gorman. Sister Amanda talked about uniquely being positioned to do something about something. Whatever it is, being able to do something. And that clarity from a 22-year-old girl, in some regards, we should, for lack of a better word, take notice. I opened up the show with Maya Angelou talking about hope. Of course, she was talking about Barack Obama, but she really wasn't talking about Barack Obama. She was talking about all the black men who will never be Barack Obama, all the black women who will never be Michelle Obama, all the children that'll never be part of the first family. But she didn't say first family. She said first citizenship, a first class understanding and entitlement, not entitlement, rights to things like justice, equality, education, a sustainable wage, a roof over your head. And her wisdom, if you get a chance to look it up, it's under Maya Angelou Talks About Hope. Her wisdom comes from a woman who had lost hope. If you ever read I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, it literally tears your heart out of your chest, because it's coming from the abuses of a young woman who's been abused. And I know you guys have read it, but when she was young, she was sexually assaulted. She told her family members, and the man who did it subsequently was killed. And she thought her words killed that man. And as a result, she didn't speak for a number of years. She was selectively mute for a number of years. And the thing that freed her was this reading. And what did she say about the reading? She said that the reading gave her hope. It gave her agency. Though this thing had happened, she began to understand that my value in that situation is that I survive. My value in that situation is that I survive. And throughout her history, which is a very rich history, it is so much about, number one, surviving. Number two, talking about hope, but talking about hope in what? In transition to action. She lived an amazing life, brothers and sisters, an amazing life. And what she reminds me of, probably reminds you of as well, that we all have the capacity to live amazing lives. We all have the capacity to live amazing lives if we do some things. If we do some things. You take the dream, you put it to hope, you slide it over, you say I got faith, and then it moves to belief. And somewhere in that life cycle, brothers and sisters, somewhere in that life cycle, this is what's going to happen. the quality of existence here in the United States. I'm not going to say all over the United States, but people in the know, people like who are here on the Shoutout Show, the quality of life and existence and purposefulness in our existence changes the game. I guarantee it changes the game. History has shown me it changes the game. And I would begin with myself. I critique myself and say, hey, listen, when they say when the tough get going, when things get tough, the tough get going, let's add one. When things get tough, and the tough get going, the tough get inspired. And the tough believe. So listen, I'm going to let you guys go. I know I'm over my time, but I appreciate you. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. God bless, man. God bless. And, whatever it is, if you get a chance, while nobody's looking, I would appreciate if all of you just, give yourself a hug. I appreciate it if you just give yourself a hug. Appreciate you. Appreciate the amazing, excellent, stupendous, unique people that you are, persons that you are. And then get out there, stop hoping, and let's get through believing and executing. I'm Preacher Moss. This is a Shoutout Show. God bless. See you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shoutout Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shoutout Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarif Attar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifattar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.